ಹುರಿ ಪಲಿತ ಮಿಗುತುಂ ಕೇನ್ ಬೊಯ್ಮುಗೆ ನುರಂಗಳು ಆದತಕ ಹೆಲಿಫೆಲಿವೆಗಳು ಮದುಮಾ ದುಂಫತ್ ಕೇಸ್ತಿಮಾಲ್ ಕುರುಂ ಅದಿ ರಾಬುಯಂ ಫದ ಆದಕಾದತಂ ಹಿಮೆನೆ
Making headlines this hour, President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu ratifies the Insurance Act, a far-reaching legislative measure that introduces a formal regulatory framework for the insurance sector in the Maldives. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu ratifies the First Amendment to the National Payment System Act, a legislative measure that significantly expands the regulatory authority of the Maldives Monetary Authority. Ambassador of China to the Maldives, Kong Xianhua, says the free trade agreement between the Maldives and China, which came into effect on 1st January, is poised to deliver significant benefits to the Maldivian people.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. Now the news in detail. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu ratifies the Insurance Act, a far-reaching legislative measure that introduces a formal regulatory framework for the insurance sector in the Maldives. The bill was approved during the 26th sitting of the second session of the 2025 parliamentary term held on Monday, 18th August. Under the new law, insurance companies and intermediaries are subject to defined licensing requirements and regulatory oversight. The legislation sets out the conditions under which insurance services may be offered alongside detailed procedures for obtaining operational licenses. It also addresses the internal governance of insurance firms, specifying how management should be structured and the principles by which these entities must operate. Trade conditions are clearly outlined and operational standards for intermediaries are codified to ensure consistency and compliance. Provisions concerning record keeping, financial reporting, audits and inspections form a critical part of the framework. The law introduces supervisory mechanisms designed to uphold transparency and institutional integrity across the sector. Additional guidelines cover market conduct and dispute resolution, while also detailing the appointment of administrators and the regulatory actions to be taken in defined circumstances. Following ratification, the Insurance Act was published in the Government Gazette and has now come into force. According to government sources, its implementation is expected to strengthen consumer protections, reinforce financial oversight, and support the long-term development of the country's insurance industry. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu ratifies the First Amendment to the National Payment System Act, a legislative measure that significantly expands the regulatory authority of the Maldives Monetary Authority, MMA, the country's central bank. The amendment was passed by Parliament during the 26th sitting of the second session held on Monday, 18th August 2025. Following its ratification, the bill was published in the Government Gazette and has now come into legal effect. The legislation grants the MMA statutory powers to oversee the development and modernization of the national payment infrastructure. It is intended to reinforce the financial system and support the rollout of innovative payment services driven by emerging technologies. To carry out this mandate, the MMA may form independent companies or enter into joint ventures and strategic partnerships in accordance with the provisions of the bill. These mechanisms are designed to accelerate the evolution of the country's payment landscape and bring it in line with international standards. The amendment also introduces new licensing requirements. Under the revised framework, no individual or entity may operate a payment system defined by the legislation without formal authorization from the MMA. Unlicensed solicitation of such services is prohibited. To enforce compliance, the MMA has been vested with discretionary authority to impose financial penalties. Fines for violations may range from $6,486.49 to $648,648.65, reflecting the seriousness of the unauthorized activity within the payment sector. Ambassador of China to the Maldives, Kong Xianhua, says the Free Trade Agreement (FTA) between the Maldives and China, which came into effect on 1st January, is poised to deliver significant benefits to the Maldivian people.
In an exclusive interview with PSM News, Ambassador Kong highlighted the enormous opportunity for Maldivian fish and seafood products in the vast Chinese market. Before the FTA, Maldivian products were not widely seen in China, despite China being a major importer of seafood. However, Ambassador Kong said the agreement has already increased demand for Maldivian products, which are now establishing a brand presence in the Chinese market.
Now, our Maldivian friends know that China is the largest importer of seafood. You know, before the inauguration of CMFTA, Maldivian exporters did not export fishery products to China. Most of Maldivian fishery products exported to developed countries. That makes sense because tuna, jackfish, luxury products. But nowadays, the consumption power in China are really huge. I believe there is a great potential for Maldivian tuna and other fishery products.
The ambassador stated that the Chinese market would greatly benefit the people of the Maldives in the coming years and predicted the most significant impact would be visible within 1 to 2 years. He confirmed he is working closely with the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade to promote Maldivian products in China. A key provision of the FTA is the elimination of tariffs on over 90% of Maldivian products, including nearly all fish and seafood, providing duty-free access to the Chinese market. This was a major focus for President Dr. Mohamed Muizzu, who pushed for the activation of the agreement after years of delay. In addition to boosting fisheries exports, the FTA is expected to facilitate exports and re-exports, creating new businesses and job opportunities in the Maldives. The Maldivian government anticipates the agreement will expand the processing and export of Maldivian fisheries and other goods. Access to China's large market of over 1.4 billion people is expected to accelerate the growth of Maldivian businesses and its economy. The Maldivian administration projects the FTA could boost the annual bilateral trade volume from approximately $700 million to $1 billion.
Also, for a long time to come, the core of our relations is to build the China-Maldives community of a shared future.
The agreement also includes provisions for investment protection and facilitation, potentially attracting Chinese investment into Maldivian industries like marine product processing and aquaculture. It also provides opportunities for Maldivian service providers and entrepreneurs to expand into the Chinese market.
In a significant boost for national food security, the farmers of Koidu, Shavian Atoll, becomes the first in the Maldives to receive certification under the new Maldives Good Agricultural Practices MGAP scheme. The milestone was celebrated in a ceremony where the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Welfare presented the official certificates. The MGAP certification is a national initiative aimed at promoting a sustainable and environmentally friendly farming. Its goals include strengthening the Maldives' food security, enhancing the quality and safety of locally produced food, and reducing reliance on imports. In her address, the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Welfare, Dr. Mariam Maria, praised Goidu for setting a national example. The minister added that the certification, which encourages environmentally friendly practices and high produce quality, would bolster food security for all Maldivians. Minister Maria underscored the government's commitment to supporting the agricultural sector. She noted that the ministry is dedicated to empowering youth and women in farming and establishing sustainable food systems. The promotion of MGAP certified products is expected to not only ensure food security, but also eventually allow Maldivians farmers products to be sold in international markets. Highlighting the pivotal role of farmers, the minister said that the dedication of hard work of farmers is the main foundation of the country's food security and economic growth. The minister concluded by congratulating the farmers on their achievement and expressed hope that the certification would inspire more young people to join the agricultural sector. The MGAP scheme is a part of a broader strategy by the government to enhance agricultural standards and reduce import dependency. Maldives Customs Service figures shows Maldives exports witnessed a dramatic surge in July, recording a 222% increase compared to the same period last year.
According to customs figures, exports reached $13.6 million in July this year, a significant jump from the $4.2 million in July of the previous year. This strong performance builds upon a solid first 7 months of the year, where cumulative exports increased by 52% compared to the same period last year. The Maldives exported goods valued at $90.7 million in the first 7 months of 2025 compared to $61.2 million in the corresponding period of 2024. Fish and fish products continue to be the backbone of the Maldivian export economy, with frozen and chilled seafood alongside various fish products constituted the largest share of exports in the past 7 months. The key markets for these exports were Thailand, worth around $52.5 million, and the United Kingdom, with goods worth $16.4 million. According to customs data, while exports have soared, Maldives continues to heavily rely on imports. In July alone, goods worth $291 million were imported. The primary sources of these imports in July were as follows: China with $46.1 million, India with $45.6 million, UAE with $40.3 million, Oman with $33.2 million, and Singapore with $28 million. Import and export revenue in July amounted to $19.1 million, down from $23.6 million in July last year. The Maldives' export surge signifies a positive trend for the nation's economy, particularly within the crucial fisheries sector. However, the continued high level of imports underscores the ongoing challenge of achieving a more balanced trade environment and diversifying the economy beyond its core exports.
A compliance audit report released by the Auditor General's Office shows the Employment Tribunal of the Maldives decided 273 cases last year.
This comes as the tribunal, legally mandated to handle employment disputes in the country, experienced a notable increase in new case submissions. The audit report indicates that 277 new cases were filed with the tribunal last year, marking a 38.5% increase compared to the 200 cases reported the previous year. While the number of cases submitted rose, the tribunal maintained a steady pace in resolving cases, deciding 273 cases last year. According to the Employment Tribunal's audit report, however, this figure represents a slight decrease of 2.5% compared to the 280 cases decided in 2023. A significant concern highlighted in the audit report is the growing backlog of pending cases. As of last year, 244 cases remained unresolved, including those filed in 2023. This is a substantial increase from the 124 cases pending in the previous year. Beyond case statistics, the Auditor General's compliance audit also reviewed the tribunal's financial management. The report concluded that the Employment Tribunal operated within its allocated budget and adhered to financial regulations throughout last year. The Employment Tribunal, established under the Employment Act, is responsible for resolving disputes between employers and employees, as well as other matters stipulated by relevant laws and agreements. The tribunal comprises 7 members, including a president and vice president appointed by the President of the Maldives.
The U.S. tariff exemption for package shipments valued under $800 ends raising cost and disrupting supply chain models for e-commerce companies, small businesses using online marketplaces, and consumers alike.
The U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) began collecting standard duty rates on all global parcel imports, regardless of value, country of origin, or mode of transportation on 29 August, Friday. It offered a flat rate duty option of $80 to $200 per package shipped from foreign postal agencies for 6 months. The move broadens the Trump administration's cancellation of the de minimis exception for packages from China and Hong Kong in May as part of an effort to halt the shipments of phenyl and its precursor chemicals into the U.S. The de minimis exception has been in place since 1938, starting at $5 for gift imports, and was raised from $200 to $800 in 2015 as a means to foster small businesses' growth on e-commerce marketplaces. But direct shipments from China exploded after Trump raised tariffs on Chinese goods during his first term, creating a new direct-to-consumer business model for e-commerce firms Shein and Temu.
In a United Nations Security Council meeting, UK Ambassador to the UN, Barbara Woodward, describes the farming in Gaza City is entirely man-made and a moral outrage. She called on Israel to promptly lift its restrictions on aid to the region.
Gaza City and surrounding areas are officially suffering from famine, and it will likely spread, a global hunger monitor determined on 29 August, Friday. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification System said 514,000 people, nearly a quarter of Palestinians in Gaza, are experiencing famine, and that it is due to rise to 641,000 by the end of September.
The IPC's confirmation of famine in Gaza City marks the first officially recorded famine in modern history in the Middle East. It is entirely man-made and, as my Foreign Secretary has said, it is a moral outrage. Over 100 children in Gaza have died of malnutrition, while food is sitting at Gaza's borders. I have 2 clear messages for Israel. Immediately lift restrictions and allow food, medical supplies and fuel to reach those in desperate need in line with international humanitarian law, and allow the UN and international NGOs to carry out their life-saving work without obstruction.
Israel asked a global hunger monitor on 27 August, Wednesday, to retract an assessment. Israel wrongfully dismissed the findings as false and biased, saying the IPC had based its survey on partial data largely provided by Hamas, which did not supposedly take into account a recent influx of food.
Russia condemns adhesion by Britain, Germany and France to launch a process that could impose UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program.
The 3 European countries, known as the E3, launched the so-called snapback mechanism over accusations that Iran has violated a 2015 deal that aimed to prevent it developing a nuclear weapons capability in return for the lifting of international sanctions. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that blamed the United States and the Europeans for the collapse of the 2015 agreement that they strongly condemn these actions by European countries and called on the international community to reject them. Russia signed a strategic cooperation deal with Iran this year and condemned the bombing of Iranian nuclear sites by Israel and the United States in June. Iran rejects Western accusations that it is seeking to develop a nuclear weapon. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said attempts to reimpose sanctions on Tehran were a serious destabilizing factor that undermined the search for a negotiated solution. She said it was important to prevent a new escalation over Iran's nuclear program that would lead to grave consequences.
In sports, we have Liverpool manager Arne Slot remains tight-lipped about Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak's future. Amid speculation surrounding the player's status as the Premier League transfer window approaches its September 1st deadline.
Slot's pre-conference ahead of Sunday's home clash against Arsenal centred on transfer activity, with reports suggesting Newcastle may have secured Stuttgart forward Nick Boatmaid. According to media reports from the UK, Isak was the subject of a $148 million bid from Liverpool earlier this month.
Newcastle signed, if it's true, and I have no reason not to believe what you are saying, a new number 9. So that's very nice for Eddie because Anthony Gordon is suspended and Isak has not been training with the team a lot. So it's nice for him to have another number 9.
While Liverpool and Arsenal have both won their opening 2 games, Slot said it was important to avoid dropping points this early against Mikel Arteta's team, who are hungry for a league title after finishing as runners-up the last 3 seasons. Slot said Conor Bradley and Alexis McAllister returned to training this week, while his squad did not pick up any injuries in their 3-2 league win over Newcastle. The Dutch coach also praised new signing Hugo Ekitike, who has 3 goals in 3 games in all competitions since joining from Eintracht Frankfurt last month.
More than 500 players from around the world battles it out on the pitch in Oslo for the Homeless World Cup, an international tournament bringing together football teams made up of players who are experiencing homelessness or are economically or socially marginalized.
The tournament, taking place in the center city near the City Hall, is the 20th edition of the Cup, which started in 2003. The competition aims to inspire people experiencing homelessness to change their lives while challenging global perceptions and stigma, according to the Homeless World Cup Foundation, which runs the contest. Under a blue sky, supporters gathered in stands around the main pitch to watch teams play, cheering on as both men's and women's squads competed through the day. The tournament is open to players over the age of 16 who have experienced homelessness or are economically or socially marginalized.
They are absolutely amazing people. It's been the best experience of my life. Every one of us, I mean, I never met these people up to 3 months ago, 12 weeks training. And yeah, we just clicked. The lads as well.
Players are chosen by 70 organizations around the world that partner with the Homeless World Cup and that use football to tackle homelessness and social issues. For 57-year-old Fiona Tafe, the opportunity to play on the women's team traveling from Ireland had given her new confidence after she experienced drug addiction and homelessness before seeking rehabilitation. The tournament, which gathers participants from 48 countries, according to organizers, will conclude on Saturday, 30th of August.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.